Hey there, welcome to episode 215 of Mike's Collection. I'm Mike, and the part of my collection that I'm going to be talking about today is Super 7's G.I. Joe ReAction figures Wave 4. So as you're probably aware, ReAction figures are the 3 3/4 inch figures that are done in that Kenner Star Wars style from the early 80s. So they just have 5 points of articulation. They're very simple. Super 7 has really made that style of figures popular in more recent years. They've got the ReAction line, which covers all kinds of properties, including G.I. Joe, Transformers, Ninja Turtles, and almost every movie and brand you can think of. And other companies like Hasbro has even got in on it. Now they're doing ReAction style Marvel figures, and they're doing kind of the retro style Star Wars figures. So yeah, there's a lot of these figures, and it's one of my fastest growing collections. And I'm a really big fan of the Super 7 G.I. Joe figures, because these are the most cartoon accurate G.I. Joe figures we've ever gotten. And yeah, they're just really cool. They're not for everybody. I know some Joe collectors really don't like them because of the simplified articulation. But what you lose in articulation, I think you gain in charm and that cartoon accuracy. So I've previously covered the first 3 waves, as well as some of the convention exclusives, such as their glow-in-the-dark figures and their box sets. So yeah, today I'm going to take a look at 5 figures from wave number 4. So why don't we dive into that? So here are the 5 ReAction figures that I have to review from wave 4. But before I get into talking about these guys, I want to quickly talk about the figures that I did not get. So I kind of like to consider myself a completist with this line. Like, I don't want to let any of the individual characters pass me by. But Super 7 has been pumping out a lot of variants in this line, which I don't really feel the need to get all of them. So I'm not a completist in that I'm not buying every single variation, but I do want to get at least, every single character. So in wave 4, I had pre-ordered all of these things before I'd even seen the figures. I bought these all from Big Bad Toy Store. And initially they had the listings with no picture, and I saw it said, I think it was Cobra Commander version 3 and Snake Eyes version 3 or version 4, whatever it was. So I pre-ordered those along with these 5 figures here. However, once the images came out and I saw what I'd actually pre-ordered, I canceled my Cobra Commander and my Snake Eyes. So this is the Cobra Commander figure that is included with this wave. So you can see he's in his blue outfit with the kind of chrome reflective battle helmet, and then he's got a cape, and he's got his snake scepter. So that's cool. Sometimes Cobra Commander had a cape, sometimes he had a scepter, not all the time. But in wave 1, I think it was, of these ReAction figures, we got this Cobra Commander. And as you can see, this Cobra Commander is virtually identical to the new one, except he doesn't have the cape or the scepter. He just has his little pistol there. But just a couple added accessories isn't really enough to justify me buying this figure again. I prefer him without the cape, to be honest with you, and the scepter, not really a big deal for me at all. And besides that, I also have this repaint Cobra Commander, so it's the exact same figure, just painted in darker colors. That guy came out in wave 2 or 3, whatever it was. And then I have the same figure over again in the glow-in-the-dark colors. So, I'm doing my best to keep up with this line, but when they do things like just throw in an extra accessory or two, they're not going to get my money out of me there. I have to be a little sensible when it comes to buying toys. So yeah, I've got 3 Cobra Commanders already, and if they make other variations like his hooded version or his armored Cobra Commander, or even if they repaint this figure in black or red, I'll buy that too. But just giving me an extra weapon or an extra cape, not enough for me to buy that one. Now, the other figure, the Snake Eyes, that I passed on, I didn't know what that was going to look like. I already have multiple Snake Eyeses in this line. But it turns out, when they revealed the figure, it was Snake Eyes in his Cobra disguise. That's from the episode Pyramid of Darkness, where Snake Eyes and Shipwreck put on these snake lane outfits so they can sneak into Cobra headquarters. And it's kind of a neat figure. It's very specific. If you had these figures to play with, I don't know how often you'd have Snake Eyes going undercover. But anyways, that's not the reason why I didn't buy it, because it was too specific. The thing is, just a couple of months ago, in the summer, Super 7 put out a box set of reaction figures at San Diego Comic-Con, and it included Snake Eyes in his Snakeling outfit. And for accessories, you see here he's got his little laser disc with Cobra's plans on it, which is the same accessory that comes with the other figure. The only difference being this figure has the hat on, which Snake Eyes wore through most of the episode, and then the single carded figure that they put out in this wave doesn't have the hat on. So again, that's just too minor a difference for me not to bother. I have like 3 different versions of Commando Snake Eyes, plus I have Ninja Snake Eyes, and I have Snake Eyes in his Cobra disguise. Do I really need Snake Eyes in Cobra disguise without his hat on? No. So, you know, this is a cool figure. If you didn't get the box set, then sure, maybe pick up the single carded one. It's a lot more affordable, but I definitely don't need both. And plus, this version here, it even came with his Wolf Timber, which you don't get in the single pack. So this one is the way to go, I think, if you can only get one of them. So there's another figure in this wave that I did not pick up, and that is the G.I. Joe generic trooper. Now, Super 7 has been doing a lot of generic troopers. Now, it's not abnormal for Cobra to have a lot of unnamed soldiers, but it is a little different for G.I. Joe. We didn't really get those back in the vintage G.I. Joe line, even though you did see extra characters kind of running around in the backgrounds of the cartoon. So, for example, in Wave 1, we got this guy who's just the generic green shirt, and this figure was available in 3 different skin tones. So you could get him as black, white, or Hispanic. And I bought, I think, 2 or maybe even all 3 of them in Wave 1. And then we got in Wave 2 the Sailor. And so these guys, you also used to see them kind of on the episodes when they were on the aircraft carrier. You'd see lots of these guys in the background. And I think there were 9 variations of this guy. You could get him in the 3 different skin tones, but you could also get him clean shaven with a mustache or with a beard. And that's when I started thinking, okay, this is getting a little excessive. I don't really need 9 of this guy. I bought, I think, 3 of them. So here you see I've got African American with a beard and white guy with a mustache, as well as the clean shaven Latino guy. So, you know, I tried to get one of each different facial hair variation, each different skin tone, but that was enough for me. And then in Wave 3, we got these troopers here. So these were female troopers. I forget what they're called, maybe combat engineers or something. They were all female, but again, you could get them in different skin tones with different hairstyles. So there was girls with buns, girls with ponytails, and girls with their hair down. Again, a little excessive. I only actually bought 1, or no, actually, sorry, I have 2 now of the Cobra engineers. And this is the kind of thing that, you know, these figures are kind of expensive for what they are. Here in Canada, these figures cost about $25 a piece. So it gets expensive to buy 6 or 9 variations of just one trooper. Now, if these things go on sale eventually, or if Super 7 has one of their sales on their website where if you buy 5 figures, you get a 6th one free, which they tend to do every year around the holidays, then I might stock up on a couple more troopers. But the kind of stance I'm taking right now is that as long as I get 1 or 2 of them represented in my collection, maybe I'll backfill them later. Anyway, so there was a G.I. Joe trooper in this wave as well, and it's another kind of male green shirt type trooper, except now he's in camouflage. And there were 6 different variants of that figure, I believe. Possibly more, but I think it was just the 6. So you get them in either the white skin tone or the black skin tone, and there was one that was basically clean shaven, one with goggles, and one with a beard, I believe, in both different skin tones. So 6 in total. Now they're cool figures, but again, and I'll probably end up ordering 1, maybe 3, just so I get maybe 1 with a beard, 1 with goggles, 1 clean shaven. Maybe I'll just get 2, maybe the black guy with the beard and the white guy with the goggles. I don't know, that remains to be seen. But I'm going to kind of wait till they go on sale. I didn't really feel the need to spend a bunch of money on generic troopers since I already have quite a few in my collection. Believe it or not, I am actually trying to tighten up a little bit when it comes to buying action figures. You know, the holidays are coming up. I'm planning for a vacation. So when it comes to characters like Shipwreck and Zartan, those are must-haves for me. But when it comes to another generic trooper, I kind of figured, you know what, I could probably wait to see if this guy goes on sale. And if maybe 1 version of it sells out, it's not the end of the world. I'll just buy one of the other variations. So that brings us to our first figure that we're going to talk about, and that is the female Cobra Trooper from this wave. So I only picked up one of these, but again, as Super 7 always does, they had a bunch of different variations available. So I went with the white girl, which is what they call pink skin, and I went with the blonde hair in the ponytail. Now this figure was also available with light skin with, I think it was medium length dark hair and short red hair, or maybe vice versa. But there was basically 3 white girls, this blonde one, the dark haired one, and the redhead one. And then there was also 3 African American variations with the long, medium, and short hair. So just again, it would be the same figures, just repainted with the darker skin tones and the black hair. So when it comes to the female troopers, I don't feel the need to get every hairstyle. But I don't know, the fact that I think with the white girls having the 3 different hair colors, they look different enough that I might be tempted to get the other 2 white girls and then maybe just one of the black troopers. But again, it remains to be seen. If I ever find them on sale for a good enough price, then sure, I'll buy all 6. But for now, I just wanted to get one. And unlike the camouflage trooper, who I felt I could wait on, I really did want to get this female trooper. I thought she was important to add to my collection because she's a little more different than I think the green shirt Cobra, or sorry, the green shirt Joe Trooper compared to the camo Joe Trooper. They were just a little too similar. But I think having a totally different gender here makes her stand out enough from the blue shirts. So you see here, I already do have a couple. I'm only going to show you 2 of them, but I think I'm up to 6 or 7 Cobra blue shirts in my collection here. So here you see I have a white guy and a black guy. And so these figures go together pretty well. However, when I bring them up close here, you'll notice that the blue is off. Now, I don't know if that's really intentional, if they really wanted to differentiate the female troopers from the male troopers by having a different color outfit, or if it was just, the paint, was a little off or something. I don't know if it's intentional. I actually think her color matches a little closer to the Wave 1 Cobra Commander, maybe. It's not a perfect match, but I feel it's closer to that than it is to that. So anyway, it's a nice figure though. I like how consistent it is with the male troopers, with those like kind of suspenders and the knee pads and everything. Like they look like they belong to the same squadron, and you could totally display these guys all marching together, and it's not like the female troopers really stand out all that much from the male troopers. And getting female Cobra troopers, it's really cool, but it's not uncommon now. Back in the old days, you used to see female troopers in the cartoon with some frequency, but we never had any just generic female blue shirts. But we first started getting them in the kind of the new sculpt years between 2002 and 2006. And then when the modern line started in 2007, we got a couple of different versions of that. So this one here was produced by Hasbro. And I don't think it's a great figure. They reused some parts from male figures, so I feel like her legs seem really bulky compared to her torso being a very tight shirt with the baggy pants. Doesn't quite look right. I don't love the head sculpt. The helmet doesn't fit great. I think the figures put out by the Collectors Club were a little bit more successful. So here's a Collectors Club version. So again, I think the proportions match a lot better. And these figures came out in a 3-pack, and you got them with all kinds of different hair colors. They also had removable helmets. So, yeah, that's pretty cool. And we're also getting female troopers in the classified line, as was revealed not too long ago. So, yeah, great stuff. I'm really glad to add this figure to my ReAction collection. So next up, we'll talk about the Cobra Bat, or the Battle Android Trooper. Now, this one here, it's probably my favorite from the wave. I really think this guy's really well done. And, the whole idea behind the ReAction figures is to give us these really simplified versions of these characters. And sometimes I don't think that's super successful, especially with other like, not G.I. Joe, but when they do reaction figures based on certain movies like Terminator or something, I really don't think the likenesses look like Arnold Schwarzenegger. They're too simplified. It just doesn't do them justice. But with G.I. Joe, the figures have been really great. They really look like the characters from the cartoon. But Bat, besides looking like the character from the cartoon, he just doesn't feel like as simple a figure. Like you see here, they gave him a pistol and a large rifle, which I don't really know why they did. The original figure didn't come with a large rifle like that. And he also still has a backpack and his 3 removable extra hands, like the hook and the flamethrower. So just like the past versions of the Bat, you can take his hands out and plug in the extra accessories there, which really seems like they've gone above and beyond for a reaction figure. I really didn't expect it to still have all that. Plus his chest there, you see they've used the clear plastic so you can see the inner workings of the figure again, which I think is really cool. I just love the sculpt on this guy. The head, it seems kind of strange because it almost has these like what appear to be almost extra pieces on the side, but that's how he appeared in the cartoon. He had that kind of chubbier face, and I really like it. Not that I think it's necessarily better than the original design, I just like it because it's different. I've gotten a lot of Bats in the last couple of months, and it's just nice to get something that feels a little fresh. So yeah, really, really great figure. Now, if I bring out my vintage Bat here, I have a couple of them, but they're all in bad shape. They're all broken in 2. I'm kind of just holding this guy together with some stick tack, just barely. But yeah, you see the vintage Bat, which is a fan favorite. Everybody loved them. Instead of having a clear chest, he actually has like a lenticular sticker, so it looks like you can see the inner workings of him. He had the backpack with that held the extra items as well, although I'm missing some of his extra hands. And the faces, you can see they were silver. And it also has those kind of extra side pieces there, but not as pronounced as this guy. Definitely, his head is definitely like wider. But even though they appeared this way in the in action figure form in the cartoon, they had those red faces. Now, when we got Cobra Bats in the modern line, so here we go, we got one with the silver face, which is reminiscent of the vintage figure, but then they also gave us versions with the red face to kind of match the animated look, which was really cool, but they didn't change the sculpt at all. They both have these very skinny heads, if anything, so that kind of extra, I don't know what you call it really. It almost looks like they have a breather to go underwater. So that extra like breather bit on the side of the head is completely gone, and they have these much more narrow heads now. And as I said, I've gotten a lot of Bats in recent months. So this year, not only did I get Super 7's ultimate version of the comic accurate Bat, which I really didn't want to haul out again for this display because I have it out in one of my glass cabinets in the other room. But I'll show you an image of what it looks like. And then Super 7's ultimate regular Bat, which is going to look more like these figures, is also due out later this year. And then there is this Bat from Hasbro. This is the 6-inch classified Bat. And this is the standard one. The Python Patrol one just came out, and they just announced that they're repainting it in red to give us a crimson Bat. So lots of Bats, and even though it's a great figure, it is starting to feel a little bit like overkill. And as much as I love this classified figure because of how true it is to the vintage figure, sometimes that can almost be a bit of a detriment because it just feels like a little bit of a been there, done that. It just feels like a figure I already had just blown up in size. Whereas this reaction figure, even though he's not like radically different, all those components that you'd expect to find on a Cobra Bat are there. I just think the sculpt of that head and the fact that he has the red cartoon accurate faceplate and everything, I just think this guy's really awesome. I really love it. And I've talked in other videos about how I'm considering canceling my G.I. Joe Ultimates pre-orders. As much as they look great and cartoon accurate, they're just really expensive. And I find these reaction figures are really just kind of scratching that itch for me. They look like the cartoons. They're really fun, and they're a lot more affordable. So yeah, anyway, this is definitely a favorite of mine from this wave. So next up, we'll talk about Covergirl. So this here, she's a great character. She first came out in, I want to say maybe 84, probably. She was a vehicle driver. She came with the Wolverine, which was kind of a tank with missiles. Now, this was a character that I never had as a kid because, as I've told you before, me and my brother Doug, we grew up together sharing a bedroom, and we collected everything together. So with most toy lines, we kind of split them down the middle. And so Covergirl and the Wolverine, that was one of the vehicles and figures that my brother had. I never actually owned a Covergirl until the early 2000s when G.I. Joe was relaunched in 2002 with what we call the new sculpt era. I did get a couple Covergirls in the modern era that began in 2007. So here is a Covergirl, came out from the Collectors Club. And here is a Covergirl based on the Rise of Cobra live action movie. So this one here is pretty accurate to the vintage toy. I don't have that vintage one. I never got it. A lot of those figures that my brother had, I never, like, I ended up getting later. But Covergirl is one of the ones I just never got. So I'll pop an image of the vintage Covergirl in here. And even though the idea behind Covergirl, the reason she has that code name is because she was supposedly a former model before she joined up with G.I. Joe. And she doesn't look that way when you look at that vintage toy. She looks kind of like a mom or something with that, like that soccer mom haircut. It's not a very attractive figure, so to speak. So I think they did a much better job with later figures. Like they gave her that same or similar outfit to the vintage figure with like this one here, but they gave her the long flowing hair and tried to make her look a little bit more attractive. Now this one here, you'll notice, looks pretty different from all the other versions. The closest one to this, I guess, would be the Rise of Cobra version, which the actress that portrayed her had long blonde hair like that. But in the cartoon, this is what Covergirl looked like. And we have never had a cartoon accurate Covergirl figure before. So yeah, this is really kind of the first blonde Covergirl we've had, with the exception of the Rise of Cobra, which I feel they almost take place in a whole separate universe. I display them with my other Joes, but it's hard for me to mix them together when I see actors' likenesses on them. But anyway, I'm really excited to get this cartoon accurate Covergirl. Like, she's a pretty plain figure, but that's because most of the Joes were kind of plain back in the early 80s before they really started getting crazy with characters like Fast Draw and Ice Cream Soldier and all these bright, colorful ninjas and stuff. In the early days, it was much more military based, so that's why you see characters in these military, real world kind of drab colors. So yeah, maybe not the most exciting, but still really cool to finally get this cartoon accurate Covergirl, and I think she does look great. Like, what with that simple sculpt on the face and the simple paint, somehow she still comes across as an attractive figure, as weird as that kind of sounds for me to say about a little figure like this. But it's definitely not as, as frumpy looking as that original figure was. So I think this is a really good job by Super 7. I like this figure a lot. So next up, we're going to take a look at Zartan, the Cobra Master of Disguise. Now this is another really great figure that really captures the look of the cartoon. And he's got more play value than I would kind of expect from a ReAction figure. So yeah, really great sculpt. You know, I like the colors, the fact that he's got that kind of blue, chest armor and everything. That's not really something we see very often. This is like cartoon accurate, and the old toys just weren't really cartoon accurate. So if I bring out the vintage Zartan, so you see here he is. He's still got those the brown pants. Now he's missing his armor here on his thighs. I do have it, but it just falls out of there all the time. It just clipped into place. I don't know why they decided to make those separate pieces. I guess maybe that's part of his disguise element. So not too many Joes in the vintage line had removable like gear, but here you could take his armor off his legs, and you could also pop his armor off of his chest like this, so you could go bare chested. And yeah, so I guess that's him in disguise. I don't know where he's going to sneak into like that. Most restaurants wouldn't let him in there, so I doubt G.I. Joe headquarters would. And then here's my favorite Zartan from the modern line. There were a lot of them, but I really like the look of this guy. And you can see how he's inspired by the vintage toy with the black armor and everything. Now, every version of Zartan pretty much has the same cool little feature here, where he's got this big kind of oddly shaped backpack, And if you pop it open, it's got, now this one here actually has a Storm Shadow face and a Duke face. Now that makes a lot more sense that he would want to kind of disguise himself as Duke or Storm Shadow to maybe sneak into G.I. Joe headquarters. Mind you, just putting a Duke face on and marching in this outfit, you know, bare-chested or otherwise, I don't think would really help him that much. But the vintage figure, you'll see, he's got this kind of weird bearded face. I don't know who that was supposed to be, but you pop that off, and there he is with his kind of black eye makeup on underneath, and the mask. You just pop his backpack open like that. Oops. But the mask can be stored inside. It's a little fidgety right now, but there we go. And you can store that mask with him. So that was always a cool little feature. And that's the kind of thing I would not have expected them to recreate in the ReAction figure, especially so successfully. Like, you see how that face fits on there, and it looks pretty flawless. But that is actually an extra piece that just clips off, and there's the Zartan that we all know and love, hiding underneath of the hood. And like the vintage figure, the backpack just pops open, and there's room for him to store that face for later. And then he also comes with a little pistol besides. So very cool. I was really impressed with that they were able to squeeze that feature into this little ReAction figure. Yeah, this guy's great. He doesn't stand up super well, but that is one thing I will mention about these ReAction figures, which can be a little frustrating, is, you know, they don't come with display bases, and sometimes their feet just don't seem level. Sometimes they seem to have a leg that's longer than the other one. That's not something I usually find in most other brands of toys. But there's quite a few ReAction figures I have that really struggle to stand on their own, and sometimes you really kind of have to spread their legs out like that to kind of get them to stand properly. So Zartan's not too bad. He is kind of standing on his own pretty good. The backpack is probably knocking him off balance a little bit. But in general, that is just something you should be mindful of, I guess, if you're collecting ReAction figures. So lastly, we're going to talk about Shipwreck. And damn it. I've got too many figures on the periphery here. You can't see, but I've got figures all over the place. It's hard for me to move my arms around here. But anyway, so here's Shipwreck. And again, this guy is just super successful. He leaps right out of the cartoon, and I think he looks great. I love the sculpt on that face. He's got kind of the arched eyebrow a little bit, so he looks a little bit sarcastic, which you would expect. He's got Polly, his parrot that perches on his shoulder there, the tattoo on his forearm. You know, just great little detail. The kind of crest painted on his sleeve. So really well done. No complaints about this guy. Here is the vintage Shipwreck. So you can see here they've captured him pretty well. You know, he also had a tattoo. They moved the tattoo from one arm to the other. Same as the badge here. I'm not sure why that all moved to the other arm. This figure, besides the bird, which perched on his wrist, he also had a gun and a little rope accessory, which pinned on to his belt buckle there. And so you can see Super 7 has recreated all that stuff quite well. Polly, so instead of on his wrist, goes on his shoulder. And he's got the kind of little flint stock gun or whatever. I don't know anything about guns, but that gun looks fairly accurate to the vintage one. And then he's got this kind of grappling hook and rope, which I guess you need as a sailor. It seems like a little much, but if you've ever seen the movie The Boondock Saints, you know that you should always have some rope with you. So not a bad idea for Shipwreck to have that. Now Shipwreck here, he looks great with those sailor figures that I bought from the earlier waves, and they've done a good job of making them look consistent, but you know, different enough, because you could get the white guy with a beard, and you know, then you might have been tempted to say, well, what do I even need a Shipwreck for? If I've already got a white guy with a beard, I can just kind of pretend that's Shipwreck. But you can see that they have there's enough differences in the mold and in the colors that kind of justifies, I think, having Shipwreck in your collection. And yeah, I just think he looks really good. Polly, so she stays in there pretty good. It's just like a pretty basic little hole there, a little peg on the foot, and you just peg her in there like so. If he falls over, she's probably gonna go flying off of his shoulder. But she stays on there, you know, pretty well. So no complaints there. The only other figure I might haul out for a quick comparison here is the previous Shipwreck we got in the Pyramid of Darkness box set. So it was a little strange that we got this Shipwreck before we get the other one, but you know, the other one followed pretty quickly afterwards. But so this is Shipwreck here. He's still got Polly perched on his shoulder, but the head sculpts are similar, but they're clearly you know, different. I think he's got, like, his face is a little bit of a different shape. He's got kind of a thicker beard on this version. So you know, now that I have this version, I could very easily, you know, get rid of the parrot on this guy, and now he just becomes a generic bearded snakeling. So, you know, that's pretty cool that he has another use. You know, the Snake Eyes one, you can't really pull off that, kind of pretend he's a generic trooper so much, because he's pretty obviously wearing Snake Eyes' mask underneath. But Shipwreck, that kind of works. So, yeah, this is another really great figure. I'm really pleased with it. I think Super 7 has been just knocking it out of the park on pretty much all of their G.I. Joe reaction figures. Really, really great stuff. So that was my review of Super 7's G.I. Joe reaction figures Wave 4. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, make sure to hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, and leave me comments below. I'm always happy to talk about this stuff with you guys. So I'll be back soon with another video, and you know, until then, ciao.